Ever since the gold rush started in 1848, California has been the land of dreams. Whether you were an immigrant looking for a better life or an aspiring entrepreneur that wanted to hit it big, your best shot was in California. Over time, this led to California housing some of the biggest companies in the world, from Wells Fargo and Disney to Apple and Google. And consequently, we also saw the wealthiest people in the world reside in fancy mansions across California. Eventually, California's economy became so large that it started dwarfing countries. Right now, California's GDP stands at $3.356 trillion. This makes California the fifth largest economy in the world. But despite this title, it hasn't been nearly that great for most Californian citizens for quite some time. In fact, most Californians are struggling to make ends meet due to the rapidly growing wealth inequality in the state. Things have gotten so bad that California actually became the state with the highest poverty level in the US. This isn't to say that Californians aren't making money per se, but rather that the cost of living in the state is so high that even decent income earners fall below the poverty line. According to the US Census Bureau, a whopping 15.4% of Californians are living in poverty. And I'm sure there's loads of people that are just above the poverty line that don't have it much better. So what happened to the Golden State? With sky-high inflation and rapidly rising prices across the country, we've started to hear this phrase more and more: you will own nothing and be happy. While this may sound a bit cynical and pessimistic, this is exactly what's been happening in California for decades. Californians have slowly been priced out of one thing after another, which has forced them to rent or give up the said item. Likely the best example of this is housing. Much of the US has seen a significant rise in housing prices ever since the pandemic started. This has led many to hope for a housing market crash so that they can finally buy for a reasonable price. But even if there was a housing crash, it wouldn't be much easier for Californians to buy a house. Here's the thing, the median sale price across the entire state is a whopping $843,000. Even if the housing market were to crash 30%, the median sale price would stand at $600,000, which is still higher than the median sale price before the pandemic started. The median household income in California currently stands at $78,000. This means that the average house costs over 10 times the average family's annual income. And even with the 30% crash, the average house would cost about 7.5 times the average income. This has made homeownership completely unattainable for the average Californian family. And if you're a single person, you probably wouldn't even consider a house. To make things worse, it's not like things are much better for renters. For families, renting a 3-bedroom house will on average cost them $3,000 per month or $36,000 per year. That's literally higher than the median personal income in the US in 2020. And it's not just housing that's crazy expensive either. Basically, every facet of daily life is significantly more expensive. Take gym memberships for example. The national average for a gym membership is $58. Meanwhile, the average gym membership in LA is $70. Similarly, in California, the average haircut for a woman is $69, and the average haircut for a man is $45. The national average is $44 for women and $28 for men. These insane Californian prices carry over to clothing as well. The average pair of jeans costs $60 in California, while the national average is nearly half of that at $34. And I don't even think we need to discuss gas prices, which currently stands at over $6 per gallon. Aside from getting screwed over from a cost of living perspective, many Californians also get screwed over from a tax perspective as well. It's no secret that California has some hefty state income taxes which range from 1% to 12.3%. By the time the average Californian pays their taxes and daily living expenses, they're left with virtually no money. This is why living paycheck to paycheck is extremely common in California. In fact, the only state in which it's even more common is Hawaii. Considering this, it's basically impossible for the average Californian to build any sort of wealth. So it's quite ironic that most people are only now complaining that they are forced to own nothing and to be happy. Californians have already been experiencing this for decades. Aside from barely making ends meet right now, California is also poised to run into an opportunity crisis within the coming decades. Here's the thing, droves of wealthy companies and individuals are ditching California. Tesla and Oracle, for example, have outright moved their headquarters from California to Texas. Meanwhile, other companies haven't quite moved their headquarters, but they're investing significant amounts of money outside California. Apple, for instance, recently built a $1 billion campus in Austin. Historically, this was something that companies were extremely reluctant to do because California simply had the best talent and the most motivated people in the country. But this is no longer true. For starters, the rest of the country has caught up significantly thanks to the opportunities created by technology. And secondly, many of the talented engineers and white-collar workers in California have been fleeing the state themselves. So companies are no longer limited to recruiting primarily from California. Aside from being able to recruit more diverse talent, companies are also able to significantly reduce their payroll by moving to lower-cost states. You see, given the insane living expenses in California, companies also have to pay insane salaries to hire the best talent. At Facebook, for example, software engineers earn a minimum of $184,000 and up to $1.61 million. This is the same case with Google and every other mega-cap company as well. By moving to states like Idaho and Texas, however, these same companies can get away with paying 20-30% less for the same jobs. At first glance, it might sound like these companies are taking advantage of tech workers from these states by paying them less, but this isn't the case either. You see, these discounted salaries stretch further in these low-cost states than the full salaries do in California, so it's a win-win scenario. Employees earn relatively more while companies pay less. On top of this, many of these states are offering companies loads of incentives to move there. For example, Texas offered Tesla up to an 80% property tax rebate for 10 years if they move to Texas. So it makes more sense than ever for these companies to leave California. And as more of them make the choice to move, we're slowly going to see opportunity leaving the state, which will just make it even harder for Californians. On top of high living expenses and fleeing wealth, something else that has been heavily weighing down on California is the ease of being homeless. Now, I'm not trying to say that being homeless is easy because it's obviously not. But with that being said, California has the least severe consequences for being homeless. They have loads of generous homeless programs, and they even hand out money to homeless people. This man in San Francisco, for example, is earning $620 per month by just living on the streets. Of course, this is not enough money to live a royal life, but it's also more than enough money to buy food and basic necessities. Now, many people would describe this as a benefit, and it somewhat is. While many Californians aren't exactly swimming in wealth, they never have to worry about starving either. Worst case scenario, they can live on the streets on checks from the government. But at the same time, this is also kind of a negative as well. If you're able to carry on daily life by doing nothing, a good amount of people will choose to do nothing. For example, take a listen to what this homeless man thinks.
I mean, if we're gonna be realistic, they pay you to be homeless here.
When you said that San Francisco pays people to be homeless, what did you mean by that? Did you mean that literally?
Yeah, I mean, I get $620 a month, dude.
From general assistance,
yeah.
or would you? How was that hard to get?
Phone call, bro. Phone call. 200 food stamps and $620 cash a month.
Wow.
Forget about it. Why wouldn't I do it?
And he's not the only one who thinks like this. California's homeless programs are so generous that homeless people from other states immigrate to California to be homeless there instead. Somehow, California has transitioned from being the dream destination for entrepreneurs to being the dream destination for the homeless. Not only does this drain the resources of California, but it also makes everyday life for Californians way harder. Due to the large number of homeless people, it's common to find human feces and drug needles across their cities. In fact, this issue has become so prevalent that San Francisco pays people $184,000 per year to clean their sidewalks. When you have to do this, you clearly have a problem. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to go to work or have my kids go to school in such an area. Leaving the state is often the top priority for anyone with any sort of financial stability. And as these middle class, upper middle class, and high income families leave the state is simply driven further into the depths of poverty. Given the circumstances in California, I don't think you'd be surprised to hear that the population is on the decline, but it's not as drastic as you might think. And this brings up the question, why do people choose to stay in California despite all these drawbacks? Well, there's a few reasons for this, starting with wealth bubbles. Most of the celebrities and billionaires who live in California live in an extremely niche portion of the state that is filled with other wealthy individuals. So they're essentially able to avoid all of the poverty and despair that average Californians face on a daily basis. But what about the average Californian? Why do they choose to stay? Well, usually, the top answer is some sort of emotional connection to the state. Maybe they were born and raised in California and their entire family lives there. Or maybe the person is heavily involved with outdoor activities and good weather along with beautiful nature are top priorities. Aside from some sort of emotional connection with the state, Many people choose to stay in California or even move to California in order to minimize discrimination. California is by far the most accepting place in the entire world, whether we're talking about people of color or LGBT. So people that are part of these communities are reluctant to leave for obvious reasons. It should also be mentioned that California is a sanctuary state, which means that they have some of the loosest rules when it comes to illegal immigrants. In fact, California is home to over 2 million unauthorized immigrants, and I don't think these guys have any plans of moving out anytime soon. Also, something else to note is that there's loads of Californians who do want to leave, but their circumstances prevent it. For example, they might have a unique job that's only available in California. Or maybe they don't have enough money to take the risk of completely uprooting their lives and moving to another state. But even with all these driving factors, California's population is still declining. So clearly, the motivation to leave is quite strong for many. At the end of the day, California is by no means perfect. They have an extremely high cost of living, high taxes, a massive homeless problem, and companies are fleeing as fast as possible. All of these factors have led to California becoming the poorest state in America. And from an objective perspective, it makes little sense to stay. But for many, this is not the only consideration. For them, California is their home, and though it may not be perfect, they would rather stick with California and try to fix the state than flee and watch the state rot from afar. Would you guys stay in California? Comment that down below. Also, drop a like if you hope that California can make a recovery for the sake of its people. And of course, consider checking out our Discord community to suggest future video ideas, and consider subscribing to see more questions logically answered. But until then, I'm Hari, and I'll see you guys on the next one.